Blanket Stitch Applique is done with a stitch in the quilting menu and stitch number 1329 and 1330. One is just kind of a single version and one is a triple version, making it look much heavier, like you've done it by hand with something like floss. So let's just set these up. When they come in, you'll notice that the width and length are fairly similar, 2.3 and 2.6. I usually like to keep that all in proportion. So as I make my stitch width wider here or longer, if I make one up to 3.5, I usually make the other one also to almost 3.5. So you get that kind of box shape as you change it. So whatever settings you like, I'm going to just go ahead and push clear. That's easy. The other thing I like to do is when I go to sew and I've got my open toe foot number 20C on, I will usually like to move the whole stitch to the far right and make it so I can use the edge of my inside of my toe as a guide, making it a lot easier to try to follow than trying to follow down the middle of the foot, which isn't middle because this is not a symmetrical stitch. So test out the width and length of your blanket stitch when you are going. So if you have something that's really small, you're going to adjust this to be more proportioned to that small little area you're going around. If you have something much bigger, make that stitch a little bit bolder so it doesn't just get lost on the little tiny edge. And then try out both stitches and see which one you like. This is definitely one that I like to have it, so let me go ahead and just do a little stitching here. When I start stitching and I stop with my needle down, this is where I'll set my settings to be where the foot pops up. So when the needle's down, we want to pop up that middle size, the middle one here. And then that way, if I need to pivot a little bit, it's really easy to do. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like a little closer. See how I can just run the edge of the foot right inside the toe? And then it does, it pops up each time I want to stop here, and making it easy to either go around a corner or pivot around a curve. And let's see here, I'm going to take one more stitch. Good. And then we'll pivot, and then we'll go ahead and do a little bit more stitching around. Let's go ahead and pick that other stitch so you can see its sequence. Again, I'm going to move my needle position over to the far side. This time what I'll do is go back and forth multiple times. The key here though is when it's going in and out, back and forth, you need to know when to stop before you actually pivot. Because if you pivot before it actually is in the middle of its back and forth, then it's going to be like back and off and not give you the right stitch at the right place. So you almost have to know its little dance. In, out, in, back, and then pivoting on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the forward jump, then we could pivot a little. Because the idea is that you keep kind of the jumps that come into your fabric perpendicular to the edge of the shape. So this one I do usually take my time as I go around and then really kind of get a good feel when to do the pivoting, stopping with the needle down and then that little pop up, then do the little pivot as you go. And you'll get a nice smooth look to this stitch all the way around the applique. All right, so let's just see what we're looking at here. So we have a little bit of the close-up stitch. That was the single one. And then the larger one is a heavier version of the same stitch. It usually is preset a little bit thicker, or I should say wider, and then you can adjust it to be even more, because remember this machine will do a 9mm wide stitch, and you could have it be like it was done by hand, especially on those wool appliques. That's a really nice feature, and it sure beats doing it by hand when it comes to getting it done in a timely manner. So try both of your settings, try out the different decorative stitches, and don't forget that just because you are doing an applique doesn't mean you have to only use a blanket stitch. Try out some of the other stitches in your machine and cover the edge in the same manner.